So then you apply to a program
called Cedars Union. Here's my wonderful headshot of me in my studio here at Cedars Union 6 years ago.
Yeah, by Sean Samel
Yeah.
from the first cohort.
Yeah.
And I love seeing like the work behind you. And if you guys can't see, they're kind of like webs. They're cut maps.
Yeah, they are tourist maps where I cut out the city blocks. So there's kind of a spider web of streets left behind. So that's what's right behind. Yeah, they're toward the right. And then I'll also save the pieces and collage with them. So some of the pieces toward the left were like that. And then I was still painting and working on the Yupo. But yeah, this is my studio, my little 8x8.
Currently where Christina Hahn is. Legacy of people who do collage work back there.
Yeah. It's a good spot for paper art.
So you keep fluctuating between like how you use that portrait view. So what got you drawn to cutting out these maps into the portrait view, as you call it?
Yeah, so the orientation of a map is already in that top-down view. You know, you're not seeing it as you are on foot, you're seeing it from above so you can see the whole picture. So I thought this is something I could work with because it's already in the orientation that I like. I like that with tourist maps, the objects themselves have a history, so they've been in someone's pocket, sometimes mine, sometimes other friends. I'll have people like give me stuff when they travel. But that piece of paper has been like creased and marked up and used for navigational purposes. So it has a little bit of history to it, even if you don't think that history is particularly special. But I really liked the situationists and thinking about how we use public space and how we navigate these really strange city layouts, whether it's a grid or kind of a more organic thing. And it was also just really kind of meditative to cut those little shapes out. A lot of my viewers would ask me like, oh, don't you hate that part? Must that take so much time? And it was very cathartic.
It's like shucking peas.
Yeah.
Something you can turn your brain off kind of and think about other things.
Yeah, it's very relaxing for me. It's almost self-indulgent. But I would do all that work and then try to have more of a message with it. So a piece like this, these are dried mosses I have collaged to kind of show a reclamation of nature and a deterioration of infrastructure. And what's coming if we don't take care of our planet, if we allow the sea levels to rise and the temperatures to rise, like catastrophe is coming. It's very depressing to talk about, but I tried to come up with really neutral ways of showing it. And I say neutral because, the map is destroyed, but the overall artwork still has a sense of beauty to it and kind of a delicateness, and there is a lot of good and a lot of bad wrapped up in that body of work. So I tried to make it even.
So this piece marks the first time I ever talked to you, which was during a virtual critique back in 2020.
During the lockdowns.
During the lockdowns, we did virtual critiques here, which were not so fun, but I was really drawn to this piece. I really liked it as a photograph, and I still have not seen it in real life.
Really?
Really. It's okay. Well, I like it as a photograph.
Okay.
But this was the introduction I had to Laura and her work, really not getting to know her before this, and seeing the way that she kind of meditatively approaches creating. So that kind of also just drew me to you, or you to me, both ways. So that's that cute moment. So, and then You
Very different.
are given a loan,
Yeah.
a beautiful loan
Yeah.
of space maps.
One of the magical things that happened while I was here at the Cedars Union was someone close to the organization came through and was interested in the way I was creating work about Earth. And he had a collection of maps of other planets, particularly Mars, Venus, Mercury, maybe a couple of others, but all the rocky ones. And just being a good supporter of the arts, he asked me if I'd be willing to look at those maps and make some art based off of it. He was like, "Are you exclusive with Earth or do you want to try Mars?" I was like, "Oh, I want to try Mars."
No, I only have an exclusive relationship with Earth. Just the two of us.
Yeah. So this is from a map of Mars. It's ink on Yupo. It is quite abstracted in terms of color. If you look at a photograph of Mars, you're not going to see fuchsia and things like that. But all of the line work in there is based off of the line work found in the map, what the USGS published about what NASA found in terms of like where are there canyons and mountains and craters. So all those little dots and dashes are representative of those formations. And then the bleeding, blending ink kind of speaks to the processes that made those formations. So a lot of volcanic activity, crater impacts, meteor impacts, creating craters, kind of the violence of the universe, and all of that fire sculpted this landscape.
So finally, this is kind of what's going into your current works, but this is like the predecessor.
Yeah.
Are these acrylic inks?
Yes.
Okay.
And then, can you talk a little bit about your next transition before we go to the next slide?
Oh, yes. So working with these acrylic inks on the Yupo, we mentioned, kind of the issues of working with Yupo. Do you frame it? Do you find some way to install it? It's very thin and flexible. But at the end of the day, it's plastic. So I figured if acrylic ink will stick to Yupo, then it will also stick to other plastics. So this is just acrylic. It's a scrap piece that I'll explain in a few minutes, but
Sorry, I jumped the gun. I'm really excited about it.
it's okay. But I wound up having a big change of substrate as soon as I left the Cedars Union. So instead of working on Yupo, I would buy large sheets of acrylic and use various technologies to cut them into particular shapes, make hanging hardware for it. And now this piece is something you can just hang on the wall with no frame. There are little eyelets in the back that can rest on nail heads. So it's kind of a designed and fabricated object by me.
Ready-made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm still working with the NASA USGS maps, and USGS is the US Geologic Society. Oh, I forgot. Sorry, USGS. I've met some people there, and now I'm really embarrassed.
Well, hopefully we can edit this part out of the video.
But they're the very nice folks who work for the government who make maps of our country and of anything our institutions are taking pictures of. So when NASA goes and takes pictures of Mars, USGS will make maps from the photos. So they're in like weird shapes. If you know about map projections and how they stretch things out, like Canada looks really big on a map and Africa's really small, you can account for that by making these fan shapes. So this is a square on a sphere, but when you peel it off of the sphere, it's the fan shape. And this is the surface of Venus.
Ooh.
Wanted to get that really acidic, hot feeling with the color palette.
So this is when we join up yet again.
Yeah, leaving the Cedars Union was hard because I didn't have another nice studio space to go to. So I worked at home again. I was an adjunct professor and was lucky enough to have a private office space at one point, so I used that office, but it was an hour away. I worked at Goldmark for a little bit, which is a great organization. They have studio spaces in Richardson, but that turned out to not be the best fit either. So with my two best Cedars Union friends, we rented this old garage in the Tin District. We got flooded, we got bit by mosquitoes.
There were scorpions.
One of us got heat stroke.
Yep.
It was hard, but it was my community.
Yeah.
And it was our space. Yeah.
And it was large.
It was very large. That was
dirt cheap.
Two very good selling points.
Yeah.
Now the second photo of Brantley and I is in the building where we work currently. So we kind of paid our dues in the nasty garage in order to get a spot in line to be in this brand new nice building.
Yes.
That is also in the Tin District. So it was a very long journey to get to that space. And I really feel for anyone graduating from Cedars Union Cohort looking for space. I know it's so rare to find a good space in Dallas.
And in like the grand scheme of things, we were only in there for like 6 months, but it felt like the longest time ever because we did not have those like basic like things like toilet. Like a toilet. Yeah. So
and I feel like even with no internet, like time would pass in a different way.
it did. It
Like,
did.
remember being a little kid and how long the summers were because you were just running around doing God knows what? Like with no internet, you can just kind of live that way again.
So much.
Yeah.
We got so much done.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
It also got kind of spooky in there at night.
It
did
did get
get
spooky.
It did, but then we graduated. We got our different studios and internet.
Internet helps.
And
Your new studio.
Still in the Tin District. So that area is near Trinity Groves in West Dallas. And I'll tell you more about it after because we're going to have open studios next month and you can come visit.
so during this time, you start working on a new body of work.
Yes. It was in that nasty garage that I got the idea for a full exhibition. So up until that point, I had been working kind of piece by piece, like, oh, I want to make a piece based on this map of Mars or this tourist map from Paris, or, I would have little projects one by one. I feel like most of us work that way. I got it in my head that I should make a full exhibition. I had nowhere to show it. I didn't know who'd be interested, but I felt that I wanted to make work where all of the pieces were one unit. And the concept I had landed on was the system of Jupiter. Jupiter has 95 moons, and 3 of them orbit the planet in a pattern that we call orbital resonance. And because they're in this special pattern, it changes the physical properties of those moons. So one of them is Europa. It's covered in ice, but because of the heat of the orbital resonance, we're pretty sure there's a liquid ocean under that ice. So it's like a really spectacular moon. There's no other one like it. And it's spectacular because of how it's interacting with the other moons. And I thought that was a really beautiful concept, that we are who we are because of the company we keep.
Oh.
And I had been in studio with these two and thinking about these 3 moons being really cool because of each other, and I felt that way about you two.
Make me cry.
And so I just started making this work, and while I was making 98 paintings, because I made 3 paintings about Jupiter itself, Brantley had a studio visit with his art dealer, and this is Jordan Roth at Row 2 Gallery. Because I was next door, he popped in to say hi, and it led to a show. So my vision of having an exhibition of all the work together came to fruition just because I was working so darn hard on it, and somebody believed in it. So this is a gallery view of, there's 3 paintings of Jupiter's storms, just like real close up because the colors will change throughout the planet. On the right is that icy moon, Europa, with me imagining that ice cracking open for us to see the ocean beneath it. And then on the far wall is a collection of all the tiny moons that make up the 95 that complete the system.
And it was really amazing. Each moon is individually labeled, and each one has like there's usually a name associated with them, not just like their like clerical number that is very scientific.
They all have ancient Greek names for people in that mythology who had some relation to Zeus or Jupiter in the Roman. But like lovers and mother figures and girlfriends.
Everybody.
Anybody who knew Zeus gets a moon. And they're still finding them and they're still naming them. So
There's more?
Well, while I was working on it, they discovered 12 more. They haven't found more since I put the show on, but it's likely. And I think it continues to trap more. So like meteors will be moving through space and Jupiter's gravity is really massive and it'll just kind of catch it and it'll come into orbit and become a moon. So the number's just gonna keep going up.
Oh my gosh, so you're just gonna have to, are you done with these moons, or are you gonna like every once in a while do like an update?
I'll probably update.
Like, big news guys, 12 more.
Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me, there's this lovely little artifact from your mom, this solar system book by Laura.
This is my first book. I don't know how old I was, but
there's another book too, but I like this book a lot.
I wrote this for this show. Like I wrote essays to explain all the research I did on like Europa and its liquid ocean and, you know, what is orbital resonance and, you know, just explaining all that, having a home for it. But while I was working on this, my mom found that.
And there's this lovely little excerpt that I would like to read to you all.
Oh no.
It began to spin much faster. All the bits and pieces of dust began sticking together. The cloud was getting lumpy. What do you think happened to the cloud? The lumps become clumps, the clumps become chunks, the chunks become rocks, and the rocks became ... Moons.
So that's how all that works. I knew this at age 6.